Welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Phil Arno. 248 years ago, the founding fathers of our country did some soul searching, some arguing, some planning, and some compromise. They left us with a pretty good system. Oh, I know they were white guys. Some of them even had slaves. And we tend to now, 250 years later, judge those founders through 21st century eyes. But that's a little like saying they were crazy because they wore wigs. Or imagine if somebody from the 1970s was condemning them because they didn't wear leisure suits and bell-bottom pants. Look, styles change, technology changes, values change, rules change, even geography changes. But even though they didn't know anything about California, didn't know anything about the NFL or the internet, had never even dreamed about machine guns or, for that matter, nuclear bombs. Those founding fathers, for all their imperfections, all their lack of today's insights, they knew one thing that we should all keep in mind: human nature. That's the one thing on this planet that hasn't changed, isn't changing, and will never change. Humans want to take advantage of situations, of other people, of opportunities. They want to get ahead. Most care for their loved ones. We want to do the best that we can. Some of us, of course, have a moral compass and a sense of honor and fairness. Some not so much. The bottom line is, our forefathers left us a system that is designed to keep the not so honorable among us in check and protect the people who just want to do their best for themselves and their family. Folks, that's what our Constitution is all about. It's not perfect, and it's certainly been under attack for 80 or more years. But our system, as it was left to us, has led to the fairest, most prosperous, most powerful force for good in the entire world. So in the end, those average guys 250 years ago had what we call insight and common sense. Listen to some of the thoughts that formed our Constitution and our country.
The price of freedom is eternal vigilance.
Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety.
In questions of power, then, let no more be heard of confidence in man, but bind him down from mischief by the chains of the Constitution.
The Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain the people. It is an instrument for the people to restrain the government.
It is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey His will, to be grateful for His benefits, and to humbly implore His protection and favor. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
I would rather be exposed to the inconveniences attending too much liberty than to those attending too small a degree of it.
Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigue of supporting it.
A well-regulated militia, composed of the body of the people, trained in arms, is the best, most natural defense of a free country. No man has a natural right to commit aggression on the equal rights of another and this is all from which the laws ought to restrain him.
Happiness and moral duty are inseparably connected.
The Constitution is the guide which I will never abandon.
Guard against the impostures of pretended patriotism.
When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty.
Liberty cannot be preserved without a general knowledge among the people.
To be prepared for war is one of the most effectual means of preserving peace.
Those who own the country ought to govern it.
I have no other view than to promote the public good, and am unambitious of honors, not founded in the approbation of my country.
If men were angels, no government would be necessary.
The strength and power of despotism consists wholly in the fear of resistance.
It is the first responsibility of every citizen to question authority.
The best way to predict your future is to create it.
I am a warrior so that my son may be a merchant, so that his son may be a poet.
The circulation of confidence is better than the circulation of money.
The Constitution is not an instrument for government to restrain the people. It is an instrument for the people to restrain the government.
It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men.
So what's the point? Well, for the last 3 years, we've been talking about the border, the economy, multiple wars, and whether men should be able to beat up women in sports. The Constitution, as of a week ago, Tuesday, worked to perfection. Despite the not-so-mainstream media, the left is still trying to figure out what the hell went wrong on election night.
Help me! I'm blind! I'll help you. I can't see! I can't see! What's the matter?
I had my eyes closed.
Right. They're puzzled because the last 3 years they've been telling everybody the border is secure, Biden is doing a great job with the economy, it's fair for men to compete in women's sports, and overseas the world is falling apart because bad people are just, well, bad. They spent all their time and efforts saying if you don't see the emperor's new clothes, you're just racist or hateful or just stupid or all of the above. Insiders, along with that so-called media, can't understand how $2 billion and virtually every entertainment celebrity failed to get their message across effectively. Well, I would tell them that their effort was in fact effective. 60 million people voted with them and that message. They were convinced. But what was that message?
I grew up understanding the children of the community are the children of the community.
In one term, he has already, yes, you may clap.
You need to get to go and need to be able to get where you need to go to do the work and get home.
We did it, Joe. You're gonna be the next president of the United States.
I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
You exist in the context. I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If
And I thought
somebody
that was
breaks in
powerful.
my house, they're getting shot. Sorry.
Yes, yes, I hear that. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that.
But
My staff will deal with that later. Who doesn't love a yellow school bus, right? Can you raise your hand if you love a yellow school bus, right? Just, there's something about the, and most of us, many of us went to school on the yellow school bus, right? Else on the bus, go round and round. So I just got, I do believe that we should have rightly believed, but we certainly believe that certain issues are just settled. Certain issues are just settled.
Clearly we're not.
No, that's right, and that's why I do believe that we are living, sadly, in real unsettled times. It is the Caribbean nations, island nations, in the Western Hemisphere. That is where the Caribbean is. We are also in the Western Hemisphere. They are our neighbors. And talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present. First and foremost, I believe that we must...
You gotta take this stuff seriously as you are, because you have been forced to have to take it seriously.
So you're now no longer are you necessarily keeping those private files in some file cabinet that's locked in the basement of the house. It's on your laptop, and it's then therefore up here in this cloud that exists above us, right?
Before I begin, I do want to say a few... When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water. As a United States Senator, I was proud to co-sponsor, and then as Vice President, it was my honor, with the President, the United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. A future where we can see what is possible, unburdened by what has been. We have dreams. We can see what is possible, unburdened by what has been. I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know? Who saw what could be unburdened by what had been. I love Venn diagrams. I really do. I love Venn diagrams. It's just something about those three circles. And I like to think about a lot of things in the context of a Venn diagram. I love Venn diagrams. Always ask, is there a Venn diagram for this? I'm telling you, it's fascinating when you do. So, Venn diagram, those three circles, right? I asked my team to do a Venn diagram of where these attacks are happening. So, voting rights, women's reproductive rights, LGBTQ rights. And of course, there was a huge intersection. Sometimes people will open the door for you and leave it open. Sometimes they won't. And then you need to kick that door down. Excuse my language.
Welcome back to The Big Picture, talking about the country, the election, and where we go from here. Well, you saw a sample of where Kamala was going. I'm not sure about you, but I watched closely. I actually listened to each side more than I ever wanted to, believe me. In what seemed to be the endless onslaught of campaign talk, I didn't hear one specific word about what Kamala Harris or Joe Biden before her would change about any policy or issue. And the issues, as I mentioned, open borders, crime, lousy economy, men being women, spending your way out of debt, come to, in my rather simple mind, good old-fashioned common sense. But in their world, we're told, forget common sense. We've been told, for instance, the last 50 years that the world is going to end in 10 years. We're told that we're all just terrible people, greedy for wanting our family to be warm in the winter, selfish for wanting a comfortable car to get from point A to point B, racist if we don't have the heart to let any person, known or unknown, come into the country whenever and for whatever reason they want. No questions asked. What else was in their message? Well, again, Kamala chose, rightly or not, to spend her entire campaign telling us, in addition to the above, that Trump was Hitler, an existential threat to democracy, a felon, a dictator, and someone who was going to turn the military on the citizens of the country. And common sense be damned, they were saying that he was the hateful one, dividing the country. Look, I'm not blaming Harris, or for that matter, Joe Biden before her. It's just, in my opinion, I don't think that Biden or Harris has made one decision of consequence over the last 4 years. They didn't write their speeches. They didn't come up with their talking points. I think there's a power behind the curtain, pulling strings. There's an agenda, and based on research I've done, people I've talked to, and things that I've actually seen, I think there's a system in place, a system comprised of very rich, very powerful people who want to stay out of the limelight, that have massive influence over both political parties, most political candidates, and most high government officials. That system has propelled the government, our government, to greater and more intrusive control over our lives ever since the 1940s. In 1950, for example, the average worker in this country paid 3% of his income to the federal government. Today, it's a lot different. Let me show you something, a story that I did in California a long time ago, in the 1990s, as a matter of fact. It's an eye-opener. How much of your money do you think the government, local, state, or federal, actually gets their hands on?
Who better to talk about how much taxes we pay than the head of the entrepreneur program at University of Southern California? We're going to talk to Dr. John Goodman. Doctor, how are you? Wayne Garcia from Channel 9, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Doctor, I brought $1 and change, and this will represent 100% of a person's income.
Okay, let me start with the little one, because, you know, it only hurts a little bit. Let's see, you're going to lose that and that for Social Security and that for Medicare. And then in California, let's take a dime. Thank you. Your federal tax on average across the United States, about 30%. And so we got chunk of change over here. Next, after that, we have our real estate taxes and our school taxes and all that other good stuff. And then, of course, every time you buy a gallon of gasoline, or if you're politically incorrect and you smoke, or you drink, heaven forbid, or you make a lot of long-distance calls, you got that little penny off of there. Now you're looking at this, and what's left? Well, some of this you're actually going to buy clothes. You might. Of course, in California, it's, you know, dodgy. You might buy food. Oh, I'm pretty rich. I'm left with 33 cents out of $1. Now, let's assume...
We're not done yet?
No, we're not done yet.
Okay, we're not done yet, and here's why. Because every time you go to the grocery store, you may pay sales tax on some items, but every time you pay for the grocer's overhead. which includes all of his taxes.
Business tax, property tax,
the water,
food tax, liquor tax.
And because he pays taxes, you pay more for bananas. In fact, if he didn't have to pay any taxes at all, food might cost you
40% cheaper.
And here I sit on tax day. I've earned $1, and I have 10, 15, 20, 21, 22, 23 cents. I have about 23% of my income.
Boy, is that depressing or what? That's an extreme case, but we're told it is not uncommon for an average person to pay between 2/3 and 3/4 of his income to Uncle Sam. And if it's not bad enough out here handing over your check to the government, look who's here to greet you, and look at the sign you'll see here in Van Nuys. Reporting live from Van Nuys, I'm Wayne Garcia.
That was a real eye-opener 30 years ago, and it's only worse today. Trump, though, isn't a part of that controlling system. He didn't take their money, and he doesn't listen to their agenda. That, my friends, is why I think Trump has been under attack for his entire first 4 years as president, and for the last 2 years since he decided to run. All those celebrities, the politicians from both parties, the media, they all loved the guy before he was a threat to the system. What's the first thing he did as president? He ordered that for every new regulation the system, the government passes, 2 regulations had to go. Next, he cleared the way for the federal government to get the hell out of the way of oil production and transportation. He made sure that the Keystone Pipeline and the thousands of jobs that went with it was approved. Biden, or whoever was pulling the strings, on the first day ended Keystone and started buying oil from, of all places, communist Venezuela. Great for the country, right? I'm sure that some of you think that I'm just complaining about Democrats. Well, again, Trump was attacked by Republicans in the beginning just as much as Democrats. It's only when he became unstoppable and beyond popular that his own party started to give in, reluctantly. But the real believers, the ones who are going to try to set things straight, are not from Washington. They're business people. They're common sense people. In most cases, people who started from humble beginnings and made it big because this is a country truly a place of opportunity. They weren't political insiders. And now, just look at the people surrounding Trump right now. Vivek Ramaswamy.
That new disease, that new infection, is spreading across our country like wildfire. It is one that even the best of science is not going to cure. And that new disease is called woke culture. It's the new secular religion in America. And its belief system centers on the idea that your identity is based on your race, your gender, and your sexual orientation, full stop. It posits that America is a systemically racist country, and that if you're black, you're inherently disadvantaged, and that if you're white, you're inherently privileged, no matter how much money you have, no matter what your upbringing was. Your race and gender govern who you are and what thoughts you're allowed to have. That's it.
In addition to Ramaswamy, there's Elon Musk, Lee Zeldin, Pete Hegseth, he's a boots-on-the-ground soldier, Tom Homan, a former cop who in 1984 joined what became ICE and worked his way up through the ranks.
As a guy who spent 34 years deporting illegal aliens, I got a message to the millions of illegal aliens that Joe Biden's releasing our country in violation of federal law. You better start packing now. I got another message to the criminal cartels in Mexico. You have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. And that's when President Trump gets back in office. He's going to designate you a terrorist organization, and he's going to wipe you off the face of the earth. You're done. You're done.
And then there's ex-Democrats that saw their party turn sharply to the left. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. Neither one of which can be called extreme right-wingers.
I first joined the Democratic Party over 20 years ago. I was 21 years old, and what I saw back then was a party that still stood for free speech. That was a big open tent party that welcomed people with different ideas, different backgrounds, different religions, that stood up for civil liberties, that fought for everyday Americans. It was a party of the little guy. Fast forward to where we are today, that party is completely unrecognizable. I left the Democratic Party because it is led I left that party because it is led by an elitist cabal of woke warmongers. They are driven by an insatiable greed for power, and they are willing to do whatever they deem is necessary, even the destruction of our freedom, to get what they want and to stay in power.
You know, the party that I grew up with was the party of peace. It was the party of constitutional rights and civil rights. It was the party of that stood up to Wall Street and the big corporations. Today's Democratic Party is the party of war. It's the party of censorship. It's the party of surveillance. It's the party of big tech, big ag, big banking, the military-industrial complex, and big ag, and big food, and big pharma. And so I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me.
So in the end, folks, the country, the Constitution, and our system, not some other behind-the-scenes power system, has survived. Trump has his work cut out for us. It's going to be difficult. There will be resistance to anything he tries to do. But watch carefully. Resistance is okay, but only if it comes from care, not if it comes from hate. When you hear some governor or some media expert criticizing something Trump or his administration is doing, think about it. Does it make sense? Or is it just a bunch of left-wing puppets mouthing talking points passed on from some powers that be? On upcoming Big Pictures, we'll get into the substance of where this country is going. I hope you join us, but for now, that's all the time we have. I'd like to thank you for watching The Big Picture, and as always, for watching WBBZ-TV. We're your local station, and we really appreciate you. We'll see you next time on The Big Picture.